Welcome to the Socks Gone podcast, where we unravel the secrets of exceptional customer service and show you how to knock your customers' socks off. Tune in, get inspired, and take your service to the next level. Socks Gone, where our socks are always knocked off.
All right, welcome back to the Socks Gone podcast, where our socks are always knocked off. Have a very special guest today. Chris DiRe means a whole lot to me. He is family. We go way back. He goes way back with my dad, and I'll let him talk to you about that. Chris DiRe owns a sales training company called Sales Crusher, also Crystal Clear Water, and he was actually one of the co-founders of Successware, one of the original field service management software. So Chris has deep roots in the trades, also had a heating cooling company with his family that was sold. So deep roots in the trade, excited to hear his story. And that's exactly what we're going to start with. So, Chris, I want to pass it back to you. Excited to hear about your story and your journey through the trades and how you got where you are today.
Well, I was born into it.
Same as me. We got that in common.
Yeah, my dad was a heating air conditioning contractor in Buffalo, New York. And I grew up in the business. I would go to the office with my dad on Saturdays. My mom wanted me out of the house. And, my dad had me, I can remember doing maintenance calls when I was 16 years old. In the not so best neighborhood in Buffalo. I'll never forget, my dad had gotten some type of contract with the city with some type of revitalization thing. So he sends me to like the worst neighborhood in Buffalo to go do furnace maintenance checks and whatnot. So, and then, I helped out as an installation helper, and I did duct cleaning. My dad bought one of the, and I don't know if you've even seen one of these, the old style duct cleaning machines where they're truck mounted, and in the back of the unit, the big bags blow up. Are you familiar with those?
I am not. You got some years.
Okay. All right. So maybe some of the people that are watching that are familiar with that. So I did duct cleaning for years. When I was in college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure, really what the right path was for me. And my dad joined, this was like, 1990, joined this group. It was one of the first 12 guys or whatever to join this group called Contractor Success Group, headed up by Jim Abrams and John Young. And my dad was so excited about the business. He's like, I want you to come to one of these seminars with me. And so I went and I met Jim and John, and I was blown away. And I said, yep, I guess I'm going to get into the business. So fast forward maybe like a year or 2 years later, my dad's like, I'm going to send you to sales school. I go, what? I'm like, I'm still in college. I'm not even like working yet, Dad. Yeah. I'm going to send you. Okay. So I go to St. Louis, Chesterfield, Missouri, of all places. And I go to this classroom, and there's this guy, this big muscle bound dude, and he's got this big authoritative voice. And it's none other by a gentleman by the name of Rick Hutcherson, your father. And to say that me and him hit it off instantly. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to be friends with this guy for the rest of my life. I just knew it. Like I had this thing, but I learned. So I was so worried about being a quote unquote high pressure salesperson. I was so scared. I didn't want to do that. And by the end of the week, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I could do this. And it started off of a quote unquote beautiful friendship between me and your dad that lasted for decades. And he was, as I tell people, I'm like, he was my brother from another mother. I mean, we were thick as thieves. And, it was funny because years later, then once I graduated from school, I started selling. I didn't tell my dad, but I became the sales manager of his company. I didn't tell him. I just basically took on the responsibility and started training the technicians and the other comfort advisors. And I started hiring comfort advisors. And I was like, Rick, I called Rick. I go, Rick, I need you to come train these guys. He's like, yeah? I go, yeah. He goes, Chris, there's one problem. I go, what's that? He goes, it's December and you're in Buffalo, New York. And I'm like, come on, man, we'll have fun. I'll take you out for dinner, this, that, the other thing. And I'll never forget, because like the first time me and Rick ever went out to dinner, it was at Ruth's Chris in St. Louis. So me and him were always like steak guys. We love to go for our steak dinners. So he decides, like, okay, I'm going to come to Buffalo and train your guys. So I was super excited, and it worked. Like, he riled up the troops. Sales went up, and then sales went up for like a week or two, or maybe even 3. And then guess what happened after he left after a couple of weeks?
What happened?
Sales went down, right? Because he wasn't there anymore. Right. So, what would happen is over time, I was like twice a year, I'd have him come out, train the guys. And then I was getting better and better at kind of reinforcing what he was teaching the guys. And as I learned, I was fresh out of college, but I was getting better and better. And I had some guys that became, some top performers. They would rank, CSG had their monthly scorecard, if you will, as to how many maintenance agreements the techs would sell, what their sales were, what the comfort advisors were. And I was getting some of the guys to make the scorecard. So it was really exciting time. And like I said, your father, one of my closest friends, and I can't speak highly enough of him.
I love it. Tell me a little bit about, with your company that you had in Buffalo, New York, what was the name of the company?
Sunbeam Heating and Cooling.
Sunbeam. What a great name. Sunbeam. Love it. And yeah, in Buffalo, you're known for your winners. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You need the Sunbeam coming through. So, and I know you guys built that company up. What year did you sell that company?
We sold that business in December of 1996. I'm really dating myself here.
Okay.
December 1996. We sold it to Service Experts. Service Experts had just gone public. There was a couple other companies that went public. Service Experts was the first. And then I think I want to say maybe about 4 months after they went public that we sold to them. And I stayed on for a couple of years, left. We basically had a software company. My uncle developed a software program to run our heating and air conditioning business, and he started selling it to that software program to other heating and air conditioning contractors. That became Successware. So I stayed on with Sunbeam for a few years after we sold to Service Experts. And then my uncle had a new version of the software, and he wanted me to quote unquote sell it. And I left and went to became his partner in Successware and did it for, I don't know, I think it was like 9 or 10 years almost to the day. Yeah.
Awesome. And so tell me a little bit about what you're doing today.
Today, well, first of all, I'm no longer living in Buffalo. I'm down, I'm down in Florida. I always told Rick that I was gonna move to Florida, so I finally did. So I live down in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, and as you mentioned, I've got Crystal Clear Water, which is a business that I own with my father, which we sell a line of residential water filtration products to contractors, specifically heating, air conditioning contractors and plumbing contractors. I've been doing that now for 16 years, believe it or not.
Best system out there, for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I sell them here locally. So,
and then a couple of years ago, before your father passed away, me and him had always wanted to do something together. And I said, Rick, we were actually, and I'll tell you, the idea for this came up. Me and him were at a Tony Robbins event together. I was like, hey, let's go see Tony Robbins. He's like, all right, go. And I'll never forget, we were on a break, and I said, Rick, there's like 15,000 people in this arena at this event for, I think it's a 3.5 day long event. And I'm like, Rick, I go, how many of these people do you think after a couple months this is going to make a difference in their life? Like, they're really going to affect change. He goes, not many. I go, exactly. Mm-hmm. So we had this long conversation about how real training is, about putting in the reps, right? About if you really want to get better, you've got to put in the reps. You got to consistently learn and implement and whatnot. And we started talking about what would it really look like for a sales training company. So we decided to come up with it. We had this great idea to come up with a training portal, basically an app, and we would have Rick we'd film all of Rick's training and put it up there. And it was great. And then unfortunately, we were, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 years into it, your father had passed. And I've decided to keep the business going because I literally love what Rick taught me. It made all the difference in the world. And, now I'm carrying on the legacy, if you will, and doing trainings myself.
I love it. And I always said, one thing with Sales Crusher, and it's wild, how life works. But I remember my dad saying to me, and I think I've shared this with you, you got to appreciate every single moment, right, that you have with your loved ones and never take it for granted. But I remember my dad saying, because I was helping a little bit with Sales Crusher in the beginning with some of the videos, helping get things organized. And he said, we were working on some stuff. He said, man, Corey, how cool is it that when I pass away, you're going to have all these videos of your dad and all my teachings and training. How cool is that? He's like, not everybody gets that. I was like, yeah, that is pretty cool. Little did I know, maybe it was about a year and a half after we had that conversation that he went to be with the Lord. And, so what an awesome company, what an effective sales training company. It's the OG. It's the best sales training system out there. I see a lot of guys out there today teaching it, acting like it's theirs, but I know where it all came from. I know where it all started. So one of the best. So make sure you check out Sales Crusher. We can include a link to that here as well. I'm partnered with Chris in it to this day. Best sales training out there. So exciting stuff. My dad always used to say the worst meeting you'll ever miss is the one you should have had with yourself. And as Chris said, I teach this to the CSRs and call center too. You got to be accountable. You can't just go to a training. David Sandler said you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar, right?
Yeah, great line.
Conditioning for success. So having a product like that, but being held accountable. Now there's a lot of great AI tools out there that help with that stuff as well that I know Sales Crushers partnered with, and to keep technicians, to keep CSRs at the top of their game. So good stuff.
Well, if I can add something in on that, me and Rick talked about this when we were starting Sales Crushers. We're like, school is never out for the pro.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
It's not like you're an athlete and you practice one time. No, you're practicing like if you football. I'm a huge football fan. The Buffalo Bills are my team because that's where I'm from and whatnot. And we've got a great team now, but it's not like, hey, we're going to practice we'll practice on Thursday and then we'll be at the game on Sunday. No, it's you're practicing all week. You're practicing, you're looking at game film, right? Because it's constant, never ending. And so training is, I don't care what you're training. I don't care whether you're training in HVAC or any other industry. Man, I don't care whether you're training technicians, salespeople, CSRs, it doesn't make a difference. Training is not a one-time event. It's a process. It's over and over and over again. And as you mentioned, there's some great AI tools out there that we use that we can actually now hear, are they actually implementing this stuff in the field? Right. And I can hear what's going on. And I just had a Zoom with one of my clients the other day, and the guy says, oh yeah, I'm doing everything. Chris, I'm doing everything. The results aren't there, if you will. Yeah. The owner's wondering what's going on. I go, well, let's jump on one of these, and I'll say it's Rilla. There's a couple different, apps like that where we jumped on Rilla, see what's going on. I told the tech, I go, you're not implementing what I'm teaching you.
Yeah.
So, Bob, we'll call him, the owner of the company, right? He wants the numbers to go up. I've got a proven process. Like if you won't follow my process and you want to follow your own, that's fine. But your process has got to work. We've got to get the numbers up.
Yeah.
And so consequently, that's something now that we've got today that we didn't have back then.
Absolutely.
I wanted to find out what was going on. I had to go do ride-alongs with my guys.
Yep. And now you can do the virtual ride-alongs. It's an awesome thing to have.
Without a doubt.
All right. Awesome. Well, Chris, awesome story. I want to hear now a sock knocking moment. Meaning, give me a story, whether it's from a past business, your current business, where you just absolutely knocked a customer socks off, or maybe one of your employees did that was notable to you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll never forget. I had a customer who he was a pastor in a church, and he wanted some work done at the church, and I said okay, and I went over there, and he made it a point. He's like, you got to, if you do a good job, you'll get tons of business from it. I said, hey, no problem. I said, my goal is today just to take care of it. Whatever comes down the road. And we did a great job. And this guy just literally, I mean, I was getting, a business from him all the time, if you will. And, I think it was the one thing that really made the difference for me is that, I mean, I showed up.
Right.
Like I showed up, I would give people my mobile phone, like my mobile phone, my number hasn't changed in, I want to say about 30 years. It's the same number. And people can get a hold of me. I'm like, here's my number. Somebody will text me. I had one of the comfort advisors that I work with. He reached out to me, and he's in California. And obviously I'm 3 hours later than him. And he reached out to me at like 10 o'clock the other night, and he was shocked that I responded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, man. I'm like, not that I'm going to want him to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, but if you show up for people and you do what you say you're going to do, it's going to prove worthwhile. People are dying. People are really dying for people that are going to be authentic with them. And I think that's the one thing I learned from Rick is that, to be yourself, right? But to live up to your word. Like if I got no problem with charging a premium, right, for an installation for us, to a customer, but you better back that up.
Yeah.
Right. You better back that up. And I think to really answer your question is, I think that's probably the biggest thing is I back it up. Like, yeah, I'm going to charge a premium. I'm going to charge a premium for my sales training, but I'm going to back it up.
That's it. That's it. And, great service, what I call sock knocker service is few and far between in the industry. And that's just the truth, whether it's in the call center or whether it's in the field. And a lot of people think it takes going the extra mile to really knock a customer socks off. But a lot of the time, and from my experience, it's the extra inch. Man, if you just go a little inch more than what your competition's willing to do, it can really knock your customer socks off. And I see it every single day. And it's different for every customer. And that's why I say the key is whether you're in the call center or whether you're out in the field, listen to your customer, ask good questions, and you're going to quickly discover what it's going to take to blow them away, right? To give them that wow experience and not to absolutely knock their socks off. We just got to listen. And sometimes it's just some simple things. And I've realized that what knocked one customer socks off might not do it for the next one, right? Yeah. That's why I got to listen, give them that personal experience. And it doesn't take a whole lot, just that little bit of effort. And like you said,
show up. Like, I don't mean just like show up, I'm like, show up for them.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do. We're not in the business of, at least I don't teach this to my clients. We're not in the business of replacing one box with another box.
Yep.
We're not going to do that. We're going to do a load calculation. We're going to measure the ductwork. We're going to take a look at the ductwork. How many times how many times have you gone to a customer's house where the ductwork was completely inadequate?
Yep.
Right.
All the time.
The system wasn't sized properly. You name it. Try to find out solutions. Find out if they've got problems. Like, and that's one of the things you should be. Is you should be a good pain detective to find out what their pain is. And see if you can provide a solution for them. But then show up. If you're going to charge a premium, do what you say you're going to do. If you're going to give them if you promise them great service, you better give them great service.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I want to hear your thoughts on this. What would you say, by going above and beyond for your customer, by knocking their socks off with great service, what does that do for a company? I mean, what's the return on that?
I think if you're the owner of the company, you're the pace car for your company, right? Yes. You live close to Daytona, do you not?
Yes.
What's at Daytona?
The International Speedway.
That's right. What do they have? You got the pace car.
Yep.
You are the pace car for your own business, right?
Yeah.
If your staff will mimic you, like I take great pride in this, is that some of the guys that worked for me back in the day are still top performers and make great money. I've got a guy, and I consider him to be a friend. We still stay in touch. And when I'm in Buffalo, I'm going to have lunch with the guy. I've got one guy, he's making $250,000 as a technician in Buffalo based upon the stuff that your dad and me taught him.
Yeah.
So you, as the owner of the company, you set the pace as to what's going to be the expectation and what you're, what's going to happen moving forward. And people are pretty perceptive, and they know whether you're full of BS or not.
Mm-hmm.
They know, like, do you really care about the customer? Do you really want to take care of them? Right. And I can't tell you how many times where, like, sometimes we would eat it on something because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. That's great stuff.
Yeah. And again, this is, stuff that is common sense, but, not a lot of people, actually do. And, a lot of stuff, again, from your father. I mean, be down to earth with people, show them, be the example, be that pace car.
Yep.
If you're not willing to invest in your people, then how do you expect them to get better?
Exactly.
Are they just going to get better on their own? Probably not. Right. So you set the standard of where your company is going, not somebody else. It's your business.
Yeah.
You get to set the standard. You get to be the pace car.
That's it. And when we do that and you set that standard, you do it, what you're creating is loyal customers. When you create these experiences, you're creating loyal customers, and there's no better customer than a loyal customer, because they're going to spend more money with you. They're not going to go shop around, right? There's so many benefits, and it's crucial, and it's not to be taken lightly. So awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny because even in Buffalo, my dad is 82 years old and he still works, God love him, with me with Crystal Clear Water, but he'll see people from the heating air conditioning company, right? And they're, they still recognize him, and they still, oh my gosh, you were so great. I mean,
yeah,
we've been out of that business. We went into, after we sold to Service Experts, we wound up going back into business in Buffalo, and we had that business for about, I want to say it was around 10 years, 15 years, and then we sold that one out too. People remember my dad. Yeah. And they've got such great stories, and that's how you build, you take care of people, and they're going to remember.
That's it. I love it. All right, Chris, well, I want to wrap up with how you can help. You shared some great stories on how you've knocked customer socks off over the years and the results of that. How can you help others do the same today?
Yeah, I mean, we do, we've got our Sales Crusher portal, which is basically the vault of your dad, the training. And it's funny because you kind of alluded to this, but there's other sales trainers out there, but most of them were derivative of your dad's teachings.
Yep.
Your dad taught thousands of technicians and comfort advisors, and there's other guys that are out there that kind of stole your dad's stuff, if you will, and like to sell it as their own, if you will, but it was your dad's. So we've got the Sales Crusher portal, but then we do one-on-one trainings with companies via Zoom, being able to have this type of technology, and then using the virtual ride-along software as well to figure out, are they actually implementing? Because as you know, it's very easy to teach somebody something, but are they actually implementing it is something completely else. So we offer those services, and if someone wants to take a look, they can go to thehvacsalescoach.com and book a call with me, and I can run through the available services that we have.
Awesome. And I'll make sure I include the link when we put this podcast out. So Chris, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you for sharing.
Corey, thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Looking forward to our next episode of the Socks Gone podcast, where our socks are always knocked off. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Socks Gone, where our socks are always knocked off.